Thaiger, we're here in Phuket today, and it's great to have you with us on a not quite bright sunny day in Phuket. Just looking out the window, we've got quite a bit of cloud. In fact, this morning I was out running around in my underpants, horrible thought, and I was trying to drain the pool because it was overflowing, and that's not a good thing. So yeah, that was a little bit scary for the people who might have been watching. And probably not a really good optic to start you with today. But anyway, welcome to you. It's great to have you with us as we have a quick look through the news. We're going to be speaking about the new tourist visas, a more serious topic, some capital punishment issues around the region. We're also going to be addressing retirement, where you might retire, and some of the things that you'd be thinking about during retirement. And that's in relation to a survey that we did earlier this week and another one that we did yesterday, and we'll have a talk about those results. And I'd be really interested to know about how you're thinking about, it's all a bit out of line, isn't it? Can I get that straight? That's a bit better. About what sort of things you're thinking about for retirement. In fact, probably the most likely thing is that you're probably going to retire exactly where you are. So anyway, good morning. I hope you can hear me. If you have any problems with the picture or with the sound, make sure you tell us. I can't do anything in regards to tuning the sound up. It's all automatic, but it should be okay. Thank you very much too for all those people that have joined us during the week. We've had a bit of a difficult week. Jay's been quite ill, and we've also had two writers in our English team off this week, and has put a lot of pressure on us. And unfortunately, I've been the one who's still been okay. Well, that's a good thing, I suppose. But I've sort of had to fill in a lot of gaps this week, and it's been very difficult. I have to say that anybody who says that COVID is not a serious disease, the three people in our team, and a couple of them have had COVID, have been very, very sick indeed, like incapacitated type sick. And these are young, fit people. So, yeah, I think you're going to hear some more words about this when some of those people come back on air over the next few days. But they have been very, very sick, and we hope that they get better very, very quickly. And of course, they're getting all the care they need. Just a quick hello to Scott D, and great to have you with us. Hans Schellenberg, just going through some of the members here. We've got Dime333. Who else? We've got Gunnar, who's always with us. M. Maranta, thank you for joining us. Says 93.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Sounds quite pleasant. Obviously not in Thailand, because it would be in Celsius, right? And hello to Bright Star, the Wu-Tang Life. Anyway, a lot of the usuals, and great to have you with us. So let's have a talk about our first topic as we sort of start to wade through this today. And we're going to have an extended time for questions and comments and criticisms and critiques and trolling a little bit later. But let's get stuck into the first topic today. And this is something that was just sort of come up over the next couple of days. So this is interesting because what they're going to do, and I've actually got a solution for this. They don't really have to have this meeting. They could have just asked me. But what they're talking about is changing the tourist visas. So I'll just read it pretty much verbatim from the Thaiger article. So among the latest proposals to be tabled next week are changes to the tourist visa. The TAT, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, our very good friends, are going to support a wide variety of tourism associations and ask for a visa fee exemption for foreigners arriving in Thailand and an eligibility extension for travelling from countries not requiring a visa to enter Thailand from 30 to 45 days. Okay, so in other words, they're going to be getting rid of the fee for some of the visas, making a lot of visas visa on arrival or visa exemption, and extend the time on your visa stamp from 30 to 45 days. Now, I suppose I could say that all sounds good, all great proposals, and I think none of them, there's no problems with any of those. It's probably going to cause a little bit of further delay at immigration, because rather than people getting their visas before and just showing it to the immigration. They've got to go through the check and the fingerprints and all that. So I think that's probably going to take a little bit longer. So that's one thing, that's one proposal. Thailand currently grants, apparently, visa exemptions to 56 countries where travellers are not required to apply for a visa or pay a visa fee of 1,000 baht, but stays are usually limited to 30 days unless they go to an immigration officer, apply for and pay for an extension. Now, the most popular visitors to Thailand, as we know at the moment, are from the continent of India. Now, the interesting thing there is that they are currently required to apply for a visa and pay for an application fee. Now, by removing this requirement and the fee, they're hoping that they'll get more people coming from India because if some is good, more is better. I suppose that's what they're thinking. And of course, here is a continent of the fastest growing middle class in the world, and they're only 3 to 5 hours away from Thailand. So it's obviously a smart market to tap into. So if they're coming and if they're spending, and they are coming and they're spending, let's get more of them coming over. So that's the thinking from the TAT. But I've got a better idea, and I'd be interested to know what you think. If they think they're going to increase tourism with this changes to the tourism visa, and they probably will, I've got a much better idea. If you want to get more tourists into Thailand, get rid of the Thailand pass, get rid of having to wear face masks in public, get rid of the compulsory $10,000 US insurance, and there's one other thing. Oh, that's right. Extend the midnight closing times at nightlife venues to at least 2 a.m. Now, if you did that and changed the tourist visa, well, you've got a much better chance of attracting the few tourists that are travelling around the world at the moment. Now, whatever Thailand did at the moment, even in regards to the Thailand pass or changes to the tourist visa, there's still a few huge blockages that Thailand can do nothing about. And that's the Chinese are not travelling at the moment. They're not going to be travelling for the rest of this year, according to most pundits, including Skift, who do surveys on this sort of thing all the time. And they say, no, it's probably not going to happen until sometime next year. So we can't expect a lot of Chinese travellers at all this year, if any. Well, there will be a few. And of course, there's also Russia, which used to provide a lot of tourism into Thailand. Well, they're a bit busy at the moment, so I don't think they're going to be coming anytime soon. But all this is actually causing sort of fallout in regards to inflation, food shortages, problems with getting flights across Europe, all sorts of other fallout downstream effects. So I think we've got quite a lot of problem today with getting tourists into Thailand, and most of those are out of control of the Thai Tourism Authority or the government or the CCSA. But the least they can do, apart from changing the tourist visa, is to get rid of those blockages. That means they've got to get rid of the Thailand pass, the face mask requirement in public, and the $10,000 US insurance, and increasing the opening times until at least 2 a.m, which is sort of takes things back to where they were. Now, they're still going to require, when you come through immigration, some proof of your vaccination situation or otherwise. If you haven't been vaccinated, they're probably going to still require an ATK test in the short term. I suppose that's fair. And then the other thing is that they're probably going to require some sort of insurance proof. Now, all this is going to cause a bit of a bottleneck at immigration. If they're going to get rid of the Thailand pass, okay, I think we all think that's a great idea, but we need to understand they're still going to want to check perhaps the insurance. I don't think that's going to disappear just yet. And also they're going to want to check your vaccination time. So what does that mean? It does mean probably longer queues at immigration. Will they add another 30 immigration queues to make things better? I don't know. But they're things I suppose we need to look at. So just go to some of your comments about that little chat first, see what people are saying. Bright Star says, Tim, Thank you for that. Yes, that's my name. Thank you very much, Bright Sun. Not sure if you wanted to say anything else. The Wu-Tang Life announced today USA no longer requires a PCR or antigen test to enter the country. This will start tomorrow. So in some ways the US were behind Thailand requiring tests when you were arriving in the US. At least Thailand hasn't had that requirement since April the 1st. Thailand Tom is in the house. Thank you, Thailand Tom. Nice to have you with us. Glad to hear the US drop the 24-hour requirements. Okay, thank you, Hans. Dating Guru says, good morning, guys. Nice to have you with us. No one's talking about what I've just discussed. They're all having a chat to each other. That's fine. Encrypt Bio says the mic is fine. Yeah, this is a little cheap. I'll show. It's a kit. They even put my name on it. But it's a... I'll try and get the light right so you can sort of see the name on it. See, there it is, Boya. It's a sort of a little cheapie, and it comes as a kit, which includes a thing that goes into there, which is the side of the phone, and then it's got different accessories, so it will plug into different phones, and then it's got this mic, and and it all charges. You can charge it up, and this has got a battery in it which keeps it charged up, and it's a good little mic. The problem with it, when you record with it, it's about 5 frames out of sync with the video, so we have to adjust that during the editing. But it's a good little mic, quite cheap. They're not that expensive. So that's what I'm using if anybody's interested. Probably not. Okay, I'm worried about Jay. Hope he's recovering well. Yeah, Jay is recovering well. He's strong as an ox. He's the size of an ox too. Big boy. Good day from the UK. Hello, Fat Boy Slim. Thailand Tom, glad to be here as well. Love the technology. The technology is very, very simple. So Jayan's got some ideas. 1, the Thailand Pass, okay. 2, insurance, not okay. Number 3, nightlife, open until 2 a.m. Ambient Mopar says, good morning, Tim, from Bangkok this week. Nice to have you back in Bangkok. I'm flying back to Bangkok tomorrow morning at, I won't tell you the time, but it's very early. And I was checking with Jason, said, when are you going back to Bangkok? And we're actually on the same flight. Of course, the difference is I'll be in first class and he'll be, down the back. Anyway, we're both flying back to Bangkok tomorrow. I just heard DJI just came out with a similar mic kit, says Hans. I'm not aware of that, but DJI do make some good equipment, including probably most notably their drones. And I've bought probably 4 or 5 of those drones and crashed them all over the years. I don't fly drones anymore. I just decided, although I've got a pilot's license, I'm not so good at flying drones. AJF says, Tim, Thailand will never recover until the rules go back to normal. Well, I get what you're saying, but just about every country's got some sort of rules. Maybe not quite as severe as Thailand, but most countries, certainly around Southeast Asia, have got some sort of rules at the moment. Yes, Hans says Vietjet has first class. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, obviously they don't. Air tickets are exorbitant, says Preston. I shall wait a while for things to settle down a notch. Good morning, Tim. That's a point. I mean, with all the fuel prices going up, and the fuel prices and energy prices are going up a lot around Thailand, around the world at the moment. So that's completely out of Thailand's hands. Even Thai Airways has got to buy avgas to put into its planes to make them fly, and it's going to suffer from the high fuel prices, which will include avgas, unless they can come up with some sort of turbocharged cooking oil, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. Tim, if you have a pilot's license, why do you fly commercial? Do you need the hours? Why don't you need the hours? No, I've never flown commercially. I've just got a private pilot's license, and I do keep it renewed. I sort of keep it up. I end up having to fly, because I sort of do it every 4 or 5 years. I end up sort of flying in all sorts of different planes, and I have to do a certain amount of hours in those particular planes before they'll sign me off. So I've ended up actually flying a great deal of aircraft in my life, and it's just one of those. Tim, turn on the captions so we can read what you're saying. Well, how do I do that? I have no idea how to do that. I'm sorry. So anyway, yes, I do try and keep my pilot's license up to date. The next thing I'm going to be getting an upgrade on, or a license on, is a gyrocopter. And there's a few of those flying out of the Phuket airport. So I look forward to jumping into one of these jalopies. Since I saw the James Bond film You Only Live Twice, I thought, that looks like fun. So I've actually studied them. I've been in a few flights with them. I did a report in the past about these gyrocopters, built in Germany. Nice piece of kit. So that's where I'll be doing some flying next. Florida Sun, is Thailand preparing for a large increase in tourism? Well, they're preparing for it. Whether it's going to happen is a completely different question. I suspect, no matter what Thailand does, that tourism is going to be subdued here for at least the rest of this year, and probably well into the next year as well. And maybe beyond that. I think tourism around the world it's a discretionary expenditure. It's probably one of the first things that gets crossed off the list. Obviously, things like food, education of your children, putting fuel in the car, paying off your rent or your mortgage. Those things get addressed first. And things like buying a new TV or going travelling, they're the things that get crossed off the list first. So I think we've got a few tough years as we've got inflation chewing into our savings, into our wages. And I just noticed a report yesterday showing that the US has just hit a 40-year high with the inflation. I think it hit 8.4%. So inflation is running rampant. And I would suggest that the actual figure is well above 10%, despite what's being reported, because they sort of delete some things from the survey they do each 3 months to measure inflation. I think one of those things is fuel costs, for example. Now, if you added fuel costs into inflation, then the real inflation in the USA would be way above something like 15%. So I think all this data added together adds up to some difficult, tight times over the next months or years. But I digress. I'm no expert in those things, so let's not talk about those. Let's move on to our next topic. And of course, we invite you. Oh my goodness, I got the wrong page there. See if I can find the right one. Where's my notes? Here we are. Here's the notes for today. So let's go back on that. Next one is the survey. I did a survey earlier this week about the things that you thought were the most important considerations for retirement. Not surprisingly, the vast majority of you, I think it was above 60%, said that they would go to a place where either their pension or their savings would go a lot further. So things like infrastructure or medical care, cost of living, those things were down the list. That was interesting. But yesterday I asked a slightly different question. And so the question was, now there are many top 10 lists of places to retire in the world. Look, I found about 20 of them yesterday. So here's an interesting thing. A lot of these same places, I mean, these lists all measure different things. Some of them sort of quality of life, cost of living. So I tried to go for, because I wanted to compare this to Thailand, the cheaper places, for example, to retire, which were preferred. And some places kept on coming up. So I put them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I put Thailand number 5 as an option, as places that you would choose to retire. Now, I would have loved to have put 20 different locations there and had a much more representative vote. But I picked 4 of the places that kept coming up in most of those top 10 lists around the world. And they included Panama, Portugal, Malaysia, and Peru. Now, I sort of picked those partly because they're 4 different parts of the world. And I was a little bit surprised because the one that kept on listing in the top 10 of just about every single list was, of all places, Panama. So a lot of people responded to that being on the list saying, well, it's just basically Americans who want a cheaper way of life. And Panama has become very popular. But out of those 4 places, the one that was most popular was Portugal. So the cheaper parts of Europe, and I think Spain and Portugal are quite cheapish options for retirement, I think would do very well. In second place was Malaysia, then there was Panama and Peru. Peru kept on coming up in a lot of these top 10 lists as well. But Thailand, out of this survey that I did yesterday, out of those 5 countries, it got 75% of the vote. That's probably not surprising given that most of you people are either living in or are interested in Thailand. But I mean, if you had a full vote and got a large representative list of people who are thinking about retiring at the moment, I'm not sure whether Thailand would do quite so well, but interested to see the range of opinions there and thoughts of the people. So let's go to some of your comments, see if you are indeed talking about that, or you might be talking about my shirt or my departure from the Thaiger, which you don't need to discuss. Okay, so let's have a talk here. 45-day visa from 30 days is a great idea, referring to our past topic. That was a comment from Paul. Okay, let's see if we can find something about, has anyone else tried to get the Thai e-visa for tourism in your home country? Are you talking about the ED visa, the education visa? Just checked return airfares from Perth to Phuket return in August with Singapore Airlines, and it's $674, equates to about 16,800 baht, which is not too bad. Yes, I think if you're travelling from Perth at the moment, there's no direct flights. Thai Airways used to have a direct flight to Bangkok and maybe Phuket, but not at the moment. But $674 through Singapore Airlines, so you'd have a quick stay in transit at Changi. That's probably not too bad. Thank you very much, Scott Shallcross, for your comment there. With inflation going up in the West and all over the world, Westerners are not going to travel either. Interesting comment. Let's see if we can find anything about the retirement topic. Thailand red tape is the only thing stopping me from living there, says Mark Lin. Man says, Tim, don't leave. Okay. Hans Schellenberg, you can buy a stick house in Alabama for not much more than the cost of a double wide. Singapore is the same size as Phuket. That's correct. Yes, it is. Obviously, a whole lot more people. What, 4.7 million people living in Singapore? And Phuket has a permanent population of around about 400,000. Okay, going to state the obvious, but many times you've been told you look like Werner Kempler. Colonel Klink. Don, that's been told to me many times. I'm not quite sure. I remember watching Hogan's Heroes. I remember Werner Kempler. I don't really want to be thought as looking like somebody who played a Nazi, but there you go. Man, if you're wealthy, you would have gone elsewhere instead of Singapore, as it's really small. Panama has good incentives, says Rusty, for retirees. You can even import your car without excessive duties. Look, I think this is the point, that if Thailand wants to make itself a popular place for retirees going forward, it's going to have to not only make some concessions to the paperwork and the costs, including leaving money in the bank every year. Obviously, you need to prove that you're able to support yourself whilst in Thailand, but some of the current requirements are quite odious, obviously. And I think they need to, do things like Malaysia and apparently Panama, where you're allowed to import a car, maybe some other concessions that will make your life easier regarding taxation and things like that. So I think it's incumbent on Thailand, if it really wants to get people coming back, then the retiree market is a very solid, stable and consistent market it can tap into. Because these people are not going to be going on, buying food for 2 weeks. They're going to be buying food for 365 days of the year. Checking some other comments. I thought Alabama was a place to escape from, not move to, says Rusty Lid. Panama also has a wide range of climates depending on where in the country you are. I figure it's fairly close to the equator. It probably wouldn't have much of a different climate to a place like Phuket or the south of Thailand, you might be able to fill me in with exactly what the climate is in Panama, a country I have gone through. I went through the Panama Canal when I was 6 years old on a boat called the Castle Felice on a 6-week trip from Melbourne to Southampton in England. 6 weeks? I think it was 6 weeks. It was a rusty old ship at the time. I think it was probably dumped soon after. Panama is like Thailand, yet somehow even hotter and more humid, says PG Santa, and good morning to you. South America's no ozone layer. Southern America's, well, I mean, it's sort of on the equator. It's not South America, it's there on the equator, you know, the little thin isthmus between North and South America. So, yeah, I have been to Panama, if only fleetingly, through the Panama Canal. I've got 2 Mini Coopers I want to import, debating what to do with them, says Token Nomad. Yeah, if you want to bring them into Thailand, it is quite expensive to bring cars, and that would be considered a expensive luxury car, I think. Minis aren't particularly cheap here in Thailand. Drumpula says no Panama for me. My alternative option is San Salvador. Yeah, in those top 10 retirement lists, there's a lot of other those mid sort of Central American countries, including Costa Rica, seem to come up quite often as well as a place that people would like to move. But as I said earlier, the most likely place that you are to retire is probably roughly where you are right now. Statistically, that is probably where you're going to retire. But a lot of people are looking at their pensions, looking at their savings and saying, I'm going to have to move somewhere that has a lower cost of living where my money is going to last longer, because a lot of us are living longer, healthier lives. And, I'm planning on getting to 3 figures if I can, and I try and look after my health as best I can, so that our retirement funds have got to go a lot further than they did in the past. And with inflation and the cost of living in some Western countries, it is a situation a lot of us face, having to look at a future in a country with a lower cost of living. Let's go to another topic, and as we go through some of your comments a bit later. Just some more comments about the retirement visas. These are some of the comments on the actual survey. FC said Portugal, a European quality of life is unbeatable regarding security, health, food, transport and living costs in the south. Thailand is nice, but not so cheap anymore, he says, or she says. Not many tasty vegetables, roads and sidewalks are a disaster, and you can die at each zebra crossing. Don't think it's quite as dire as you make up, and as far as not so many tasty vegetables, we have very good fresh vegetables here. Andrew Cooper says, Thailand, I've been there for 14 years and no intention of going elsewhere. Beverly Weber says, prefer Thailand, but really no problem with being a nomad. It's an option so long as you're not married to a specific country or spouse from that country. And Rachel says, after living there and working there in Bangkok, I found it a perfect place to retire as the weather is perfect for me. Retirement is only a couple of years away. So thank you for those comments on that particular topic. So here we go, having a talk now about Walking Street in Pattaya. And I noted the last 24 hours has become a bit of a hot topic, and people talking about the changes made to Walking Street, or indeed some of the changes that haven't been completed in Walking Street. And some tourists are starting to come back, and a lot of them are taking videos and saying, what is going on here? It looks like Walking Street has had a bit of a slow resumption. A lot of the paving is still not completed. Now, the Pattaya municipality is saying, oh, it's all because of COVID. I mean, COVID's going to be the scapegoat, I think, for a long time as people find anything to blame. Clearly, the contractors just haven't got their work done. And they're even talking about that they've been sort of doing some new plantings and pavings, putting more street lights up. What else have they been doing? They've been burying the communication cables, refurbishing the streets, They've been painting the footpaths. I don't know why they'd bother doing that. Improving the drainage. I think that's something that was a problem in Walking Street. And a retractable roof installed, really, allowing visitors to enjoy the street both day and night. That must be a very big retractable roof. I haven't seen that yet, but yeah, looking forward to maybe getting up there the next few weeks and seeing what's been happening. But a lot of business operators along Walking Street are complaining that these things just should be completed if they're trying to get the tourists back. Well, I was going to use the word iconic, it's probably not the word, but the popular, perhaps infamous Walking Street in Pattaya, needs to be sorted out pretty quickly. And if they're trying to gentrify it and make it more family friendly, they might be missing the point as to why a lot of tourists go to Walking Street in the first place. So interested to know if you are living up in Pattaya, if you are intending to go to Pattaya sometime in the next few months. What do you think about Walking Street? Your impressions of it in the past, your thoughts about the changes that are being made, and if you've been there in the last few weeks, give us a bit of an eyewitness view as to exactly what's happened. And we've got 426 people online. We've been going for 31 minutes. Let's see if we can get that over 500 today. And good morning to you all from Thailand, wherever you are from. My name's Tim Newton, I'm from the Thaiger, and we're very happy to have you with us today. Mark Lim says Walking Street is way overrated. I think a lot of other people are probably going to share that point of view with you as well, Mark. So, Curry dropped 43, top 10 final performance. I have no idea what you're talking about. Tree Town is the new Walking Street, says Robert Lomax. Jay and I visited Tree Town when we were last in Pattaya, probably 2 months ago now, and it was like buzzing when we were there. Nobody was wearing masks. It was going quite well. A lot of smaller places still closed, but well, 2 months ago I thought it was actually looking quite busy. So yeah, Walking Street with all the changes that have been made, maybe some of the nightlife did move out to some of the other parts of Pattaya. So we'll be interested to see how that sort of all re-emerges. There will be changes. Even Pattaya won't be the same as it was before. People have closed their businesses, other people have come in and bought businesses. A lot of businesses will never reopen again. Some of the businesses that might have been bars in the past have opened up as different types of establishments. So you're going to see changes. Don't expect to see Pattaya the same when you go back there. Walking Street is good for 2-week millionaires. Okay, good, thanks for that. There should be a 10-year retirement visa option, says Thailand Tom, for those expats who have been living here as retirees for 5 to 10 years already. I agree, Thailand Tom. I mean, at some stage in the future, maybe sooner rather than later, it's going to be a situation I'm going to have to look at as the sort of visa that I'm going to have. I can actually say that I'm not retiring. I'm going to be moving on to some different work, and I don't want to say much about my leaving the Thaiger because it's all still being discussed and the details aren't all worked out, and a final date of leaving has not been finalised, so there's nothing really much to talk about. It's business as usual at the Thaiger, and when I know more, I'll try and share that with you. Tim, we love you as an on-air personality. Oh, thank you very much, M. Maranta, just doing my job. Somebody actually yesterday called or described me as Tim Newton, Thailand's most famous expat influencer. I was a bit taken back by that. I don't really see myself as an influencer, but I suppose doing this most days and being on the YouTube and of course writing for the Thaiger, that we do get to talk a lot about Thailand, but I don't really see myself as an influencer as such. I mean, we do have views, and I mean, I have views, and a lot of you disagree with those views, but I don't really see myself as influencing many of those views. I'm just one voice out of a whole lot of voices. And a lot of people keep on telling me that I'm an idiot or I'm stupid or I'm left-winged. Some people accuse me of being right-winged. I get accused of all sorts of things. People just like accusing people and being offended no matter what people say. Okay, Tim needs an Instagram and a ton of photos of him staring out into sunsets. Yeah, look, I'm not really very Instagrammable. Rusty Nail, a typical Aussie. Tim is trying to sell on his shop bar and charge the new owners for his faithful following. That's not exactly true at all. Natty for boss. I don't think Natty really wants to be running the Thaiger, but she'll certainly be part of the very active team, and I know a lot of you love Natty, so she'll definitely be there in the future. Good luck in the future, Cobber, says Fred. Thank you very much. But look, let's not talk about my leaving the Thaiger because, frankly, it's boring, and there are much more important or interesting things to talk about. Okay, Thailand Elite Easy Access Visa. This is interesting, says the chairman. Avoids a lot of the retirement visa requirements, but it comes at a price. So this is true, that there is this elite visa program that they have in Thailand, but it does come at a price. I think the cheapest one, I know I'm going to get this wrong, I think it starts at 250,000, there's 500,000, there's $1 million baht, and they give you 5-year, 10-year, 20-year stays. On that visa, currently you can't work, but they're looking at not so much changing the elite visa, but they're introducing other visas that will allow you to work under specific guidelines and in specific industries for up to 10 years under the Smart Visa proposal. But some of those can be, they're all quite expensive. The O visa, the OA visa, the retirement visa, or some people call it the geezer visa, is the cheapest option, but it's also got costs involved with minimum amounts required in the bank or proof of income. Tim, you're not going anywhere, says Man. Well, no, I'm staying in Thailand. I mean, Thailand is my home. I came here 11 years ago on a grand adventure, and I never thought for a minute that I'd be CEO of a little media company, or one that had grown so quickly, so fast, or appearing on YouTube. The last thing on my mind, and not something that I'm that comfortable with, but something that I try and do to provide the best and the most accurate information that I can. But I'm very unfamiliar in this space, in front of the camera, not particularly comfortable. But yeah, I'm going to be staying in Thailand. This is now where I've got, people I love around me. I've got new friends here. I've got a nice little house, a community, 3 meals a day, and there's a lot that I love about living in Thailand. And when I sort of add up the 1,000 little annoyances, they still don't outweigh the main things like the cost of living, the climate, the culture of Thailand. And again, some of that can be frustrating and annoying, but generally I enjoy the Thai smile and I enjoy Thai people, whilst understanding that it's a culture that I'll never fully understand, that I'll always be treated as a foreigner. It's still a place that I love and I feel very comfortable. So that's my take on that. So when it comes to, Tim is going to sort out the TAT, says Scott. Just let me in there, please. Go-go and reggae, weed bars combined would be dope, says M. Maranta. The whole C word. Look, I'm not going to talk much about that. There has been huge amounts of change this week to the laws regarding, I think I can use the word hemp without getting demonetised. You still can't smoke the stuff, even if you grow it in your own home legally. If it's got a THC level of over 0.2%, it's still regarded as an illicit drug in Thailand. That hasn't changed. That needs to be made perfectly and abundantly clear. A lot of people misunderstand the changes that have been made or why those changes have been made. It's all political. It's got nothing to do about the goodwill of the Thai government in decriminalising the C word in Thailand. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. The chairman, I think, has jumped onto Google and informs us that the 5-year Thailand elite visa costs 500,000 baht, but quite a few benefits on top of the easier access. I think one of them, for example, is somebody will go and do your 90-day check-in and get the stamp in your passport. That's a really good one. I think they've also got like free rides from airports, the fact that your visa is rolled over every year for the term of your elite visa. For some people, it's when you add up all the costs of retaining and keeping a visa, some people having to like register companies. There's all sorts of complications. The elite visa can be a great solution for a lot of people, and a lot of people have enjoyed it for up to 20 years. I think when it was first introduced, people assumed that it was some sort of scam, but it's clearly not that, and it's worked out very well for a lot of people. Bangkok is just freaking awesome, says Token Nomad. There's an energy and a vibe that you don't get in any other city in the world. It's the perfect retirement city. I have to say, I sort of agree with you that Bangkok is a crazy place, and there's a lot of different vibes in the city. You can enjoy sort of the cultural history side of Bangkok. You can get completely out of control in some places. I think you know where I'm talking about. And it's very easy to get around. It's very cheap to get around, as long as you keep off the roads. But then again, when you're on the road, you've got things like motorcycle taxis, you've got tuk-tuks, you've got taxis, you've got buses. There are a lot of options and ways to get around besides the BTS, the MRT, and the airport link. It's quite an easy city to get around. Probably the worst way to get around is walking, although that's what I do most of the time. You sort of got to spend most of your time looking down. The footpaths aren't the best in Asia. Thanks for that, Token Nomad. Tim, I know you don't want to talk about your leaving, but after leave, does that change your status 3 visa? Again, I've got to talk to the board about my visa situation. It's really not worth discussing at the moment until I get some more details, but there's a lot of good faith with the board and myself, so we'll sort it out and we'll tell you anything that you need to know. Hooter can be possessed, says Fred. No idea what you're talking about. Bali has the worst footpaths, says Scott. Gee, they must be pretty bad. I was last in Bali 15 years ago, so I don't recall the footpaths as something that sort of is an enduring memory. But if they're anything like Bangkok, then okay. I'm not really sure why the footpaths have to be so bad in Bangkok, but they universally are not good. I know they're trying to clean up and sort out and even widen some of the footpaths in some of the tourist magnets, like around Siam, for example. But yeah, not at the moment. Wu-Tang Life, where are you? Tim, do you think one day the Thai government will legalise gambling for tourist foreigners only and build casinos that only foreigners can enter? I know the Chinese love to gamble. Look, gambling in Thailand, it happens. It's strictly illegal, but it happens a lot. I am not a fan of bringing casinos into Thailand, but I can see what's happened to some of the border areas that have casinos, including in Myanmar and Cambodia. I can also see what the Chinese investment in casinos has done to Sihanoukville in Cambodia, and it's not pretty. In fact, it's pretty much destroyed that seaside town. I'm not a fan of casinos, and I don't think they will help much. If they ban Thais from going to the casinos, then all the Thai government's doing is reversing the two-tier pricing, spinning it around and banning Thais from entering. I don't think that's going to help the situation, and it's probably not going to endear Thai people to foreigners if they get special dispensation. So yeah, we'll just have to see what happens with that. I know they're considering it, I don't think it's going to happen. The only legal gambling they have is the bi-monthly lottery, which I don't invest in either. Why would retirees want Mary Jane? Their memory is already shot. Thank you very much. Gunnar says no gambling. Well, there is certainly a lot of gambling. It's all underground in Thailand. They do these sort of random raids every now and then to show that the police are doing their job. But yeah, the underground gambling is rampant, and you don't have to go far to see it happening. Casinos work well in South Korea. Only foreigners allowed. Seems to work well, says Genghis Khan. Well, yeah, look, I think the South Korean culture is different from the Thai culture. I'm not sure if we need to have casinos in Thailand. Maybe we need to retain a little bit of something that makes Thailand different from other countries. And if you're going to a country to gamble, I think you're missing the whole point of travelling. But anyway, I think we'll just have to see what happens. Membership-controlled casinos will be fine, says Dam1. Michael Glass, I just joined the conversation. Tim, can you tell me briefly why you're leaving? Look, I'm sorry I found that. I don't get a chance to pre-read these comments, and by the time I've read them, it's too late. Look, I'm 63. It's time for me to move on. I've been at Thaiger. I founded the Thaiger some 6 years ago, and it's time for me to move on. And I have nothing but good memories. I've never worked so hard in my life, but it's time for me to move on to look at different sunsets and look at different opportunities I've got a few good years left. I'm lucky, very lucky, to be healthy and happy and having a good lifestyle, but I've got a few other things that I would like to do beyond media. I sort of randomly found myself in this position, and it's now time to hand over to some younger, more ambitious people to take Thaiger to the next level. And I wish them well, and I'm absolutely positive they're going to do a fantastic job. And by the way, Thaiger is not just what you see here on YouTube. Most of the Thaiger is in Thai language and has Thai people following it. So this section, this YouTube section, is just a very small part of the business. And also the English language news section of the Thaiger is also not the biggest part of the Thaiger by any means, although obviously that's the best known by people who read English. True Blue Thai says, I went down to Pattaya last week. I walked from Walking Street down to 21 and it looked very dirty and needs a lot of work. I was not impressed, but it is Thailand, like the crazy cables. No casinos, says Rachel. If people, is it Rachel or Raquel? No casinos. If people want to gamble, then go to Macau in China. Thailand Virtual says, would be nicer to have poker clubs. I've actually gone to a few illegal games, playing a few card games with some Thais. I'm glad to say I bled them dry. I actually used to play a game called 500 when I was in boarding school, and we used to gamble, small time stuff, but we had some quite a lot of Asian boarders in the boarding school I was staying at, and I used to enjoy gambling with them. And I built my first boat actually out of my illicit winnings on gambling. I was a naughty boy. Anyway, good fun. Thai people like gambling, but legal might be updated. Yeah, Thai people do love to gamble, and I think there are problems obviously with some Thai people gambling, as there are in a lot of communities when there's no controls. But if it was legalised, maybe then it can be better controlled. These are comments and ideas that come up when you talk about things like drugs. Should you legalise some drugs so that you can then tax them and control them? My thought on that is that we've probably got enough legal drugs running around that cause enough problems without having more to cope with in the future. Tim gambled in boarding school for butter. It wasn't butter, it was coins. Perth has one casino, which is quite enough, only place with pokies, not allowed in clubs or pubs here. Smart move by the West Australian government some years ago. Yes, I note around Australia the different states have got different laws on gambling. Sydney, for example, has got a long history of the RSL and service clubs. RSL stands for Returned Servicemen's League, like veterans and things. But anybody can walk into those clubs and play the pokies as long as they like. Has that been a problem for Sydney society? Some would argue yes. I know in Victoria we still don't have, oh no, there are pokies now in Victoria. That changed maybe about 20 years ago. So there is gambling in different parts of Australia now, but different states have different rules, which makes it a bit confusing for tourists who need to study up on each state's legislation. What other comments have we got? Phnom Penh Casino was huge, actually pretty nice, says Genghis Khan. So indeed, Phnom Penh, one of my favourite Asian cities. I do look forward to getting back there at some time soon because, yeah, it's a great, really well laid out city and got a really good vibe. Sadly, some very sad parts of Phnom Penh as you can revisit activities and issues there some 40, 50 years ago in the time they called the killing fields. So yeah, Phnom Penh is a fascinating city and I look forward to getting back there and having a bit more of a look around. I noted that the food was very good. I enjoyed Cambodian food. There you go, for what it's worth. Any news on the mask mandate? Okay, so this week, this Friday, the CCSA are meeting, and we could be talking as, well, it could even be Thursday. But this week they're going to be discussing the mask mandate, the Thailand pass, all these things. They're going to be talking about the closing hours. And I would say, to be honest, that we're going to see some big changes. June the 1st, the only thing they really changed was moving the closing hours from 11 till 12 officially. And also they got rid of the Thailand pass for Thai citizens. So no really good news on June the 1st. So I think we're going to see some big changes announced this week. And I hope we're going to see changes that are going to make people go, wow, now I want to go back to Thailand. So it looks like we might get that later this week. And we'll continue if we get any leaks of information. The Thai government do love to leak out bits of information, see how they fly in the media, get a bit of feedback, and then make a decision. So let's see what we think is going to happen with that. Do you foresee the abolishment of the Thailand pass by July? Who sent that message in? That was from KJ. Yeah, look, I do think we're going to see the end of the Thailand pass by the start of July. That's a bold prediction, isn't it? But there you are, I've said it. So July the 1st. We do have this emergency decree in place until at least the end of July. So I probably foresee that we're going to have some restrictions in place until the end of July. And I don't think they're going to renew the emergency decree after that. There's another bold prediction. Let's see what happens. Can you have hooter in Australia? What, David, what is hooter? Is that the C word? I don't know. I'm not really up with all these nicknames. Happy pizza in Siam Reap is yummy. You're all talking above my head. I'm not very worldly, it seems, in some things. Only issue I have with Cambodia, says Genghis Khan, is their food is subpar compared to Thailand and Vietnam. Isn't it interesting? Just you can travel 1 hour, another hour, another hour, another hour, and you get totally different foods. Thai food, Vietnamese food, Cambodian food. Cambodian, I sort of think, is a bit of a mix of Thai and Vietnamese. A lot less spice generally. Down in Malaysia, you've got a totally different type of food as well. Down in Singapore, they're obsessed with curry rice. Chicken rice, sorry. Every time I used to have very good friends in Singapore, and they were obsessed with going and looking for the best chicken rice. And I think there's a problem at the moment. There's shortages of chicken. So yeah, Singaporeans are obsessed with chicken rice. Then you can travel, of course, north. Laos, China, Nepal, you've got Bangladesh, Myanmar, different foods in all those different countries. So yeah, we are blessed with some really good foods. Thai food I love, and I would have at least 1 or 2 Thai meals a day, and I'll never get sick of eating Thai food. Not too spicy for me, thanks. Cambodia is much hotter than Thailand too, very uncomfortable, says Dam. I remember when I visited Siam Reap and I did the sort of the temple tours. But yes, it was very, very hot, a bit hotter than I was comfortable with. So that was quite interesting when I went there. Yeah, it was very hot when I was there. I suppose you have to pick your times. Not having a lot of sea, like coastal areas in Cambodia, I suppose it's a bit harder to find a good beach and enjoy a sea breeze. Thailand is very lucky that it's got so much coastline, and it's got a lot of really good beaches, and then there's all the islands as well. Genghis Khan, Singapore cuisine is difficult to beat. I think Singapore cuisine is quite expensive these days if you're a foreigner. If you're a local, you know where to find the cheaper food, like in Thailand. Yeah, I think it's obviously much more affordable. There's also quite a range of food, but generally, I don't know. I think Thai food's pretty hard to beat. We could have this discussion all day. Never been to Singapore other than transferring through Changi. Yeah, I actually spent a lot of time in Singapore, and not my favourite place. It's very westernised. There's not a lot of what I would call interesting or varied culture there. Seems to be sort of run by one ethnicity to the detriment of other local ethnicities there. Yeah, there's all sorts of issues about Singapore, and not the fact that I was arrested there once and thrown in jail overnight for protesting in my younger rebellious days. Go Dad says, "Hi Tim, booked my trip to Thailand in December. Hopefully all restrictions gone by then." Oh, it's Tim, says Wig Alert. Yes, hello, it's me. Singapore food was better before they sterilised into hawker centres. I found the hawker centres have become very sort of gentrified and sort of lost a lot of their personality. Yeah, there used to be the famous one at Newton Circus, I think it is, nothing to do with me, of course, but found that very expensive and sort of sanitised, and yeah, the last time I went there, probably 5 years ago, didn't particularly enjoy it. Tim, a rebel, who would have thought? Scotch, you don't know half the story. Scott Shallcross, my first time in Singapore was 1977. It's changed significantly since then. Where hasn't it changed significantly since 1977? 1977, I didn't have as many wrinkles, and I had some hair. Taipei is pretty awesome, says PG Santa. Yeah, Taiwan, place that I've only basically gone through the airport there in transit, but one of those places I would like to go and visit, perhaps sooner rather than later, if you know what I mean. Isn't food in Singapore basically food from all around the region? KJ, that's the way I see it. There's a lot of Chinese influence in the food there and Malay influence in the food. But yeah, you can get pretty good food from different parts of the region and international food. But I do find once you sort of move away from the local cuisines and the local hawker centres that it can get quite expensive. Hagar says, I'm in Singapore right now. It's starting to get busy here. Good to hear. And I think a lot of Southeast Asia now is getting busier than it has been. Obviously, all the countries are starting to open up. Thailand is certainly chasing its tail, but is catching up very quickly. And I think we probably will be seeing some big changes over the next 3 or 4 weeks in regards to the Thailand pass, the face masks, and the Thailand pass. Maybe I repeated myself there. The opening times too. I think we're going to see some changes to the opening times. Bugis Street was totally different back then. Wigalert says in 1977, Tim probably had plaid bell-bottom pants. I certainly had flares, and I don't have them anymore, I'm glad to say. But yeah, I certainly had my share of flares in those days. Tim, will you be sharing your Thaiger photo albums before you leave? My Thaiger photo albums? I think just about everything we've taken photos of in the Thaiger are published somewhere. As far as, private photos within the office, I really haven't taken that many. It's just an office. It's not really, it's the people in the office that make the Thaiger great, not the actual office. Drinks expensive in Singapore, says Paul Henry. Tim used to do sit-ins, says Paul Weston. Now, look, I'll tell you very briefly. There was a Vietnamese Australian who was arrested whilst in transit, travelling from Vietnam back to Australia. The Australian Federal Police alerted the Singapore police that they knew that this person was transiting with drugs, and just to let him go through transit, and the Australian police had things under control, but the Singapore police marched into the transit area and arrested the person. He was then tried as a drug trafficker and hanged, and I was there with around about 45 other Australians at Changi Jail trying to protest against him being hanged. We were unsuccessful, and that was a very sad case, but I felt very strongly about one of the Singaporean police marching into the transit area when he hadn't actually committed a crime technically in Singapore, but the mandatory sentence for drug trafficking of even small amounts of drugs is the death sentence and remains so in Singapore, and he indeed was hanged. But I was one of the people arrested there, and I was banned from travelling to Singapore for 1 year. I've been back there many times since. I always enjoy when they go through my passport and have a bit of a double take, but they always stamp it and let me through. That was Nguyen, Trong Van Nguyen was his name. Back in, I'm trying to remember the year, but just something that happened in the past. But certainly, I have no love of the Singapore government or the way they run the place, but it's a sovereign country and it does things its own way. I'm just not a great fan of basically what I call Singapore Inc., run by 2 or 3 very big families, and they have their own sort of system of government there, a system I certainly wouldn't describe as democratic. Allegedly, says Kingus. No, not allegedly, that actually happened. I cannot stand all the honking in Vietnam. Affect your heart rhythm. Yeah, I actually posted or reposted a Facebook video I took in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, some 5 years ago when I was there, and I just turned my camera on a random intersection as I was wandering around, and the way the traffic just sort of, the lights go green on one side, but everybody just seems to come into this intersection just interweaving with each other and just casually going behind the pedestrians, and it's complete mayhem. Well, it looks like mayhem to me, but obviously for the locals there's some system that it works, and they honk their horns and it's very noisy, and as a foreigner you sort of think, how am I going to cross the road? How am I going to negotiate this? But most people say you just close your eyes and walk, and everything just magically and quietly just passes around behind you. And no one seems to get hit. It's astonishing. So that's something I'll put on my own personal Facebook page. But as Food Taliban says, that's the charm of Vietnam. And there's charms with all these countries around Southeast Asia, and one of the reasons I love visiting them, they are so totally different from each other. When I was young, my mother always used to talk about this area north of Thailand called Asia, and she described all the people living there as Asian, and there wasn't really much understanding or definition that, there's Indonesia and there's Japan and there's Thailand and there's Philippines, some 14 different countries that all have got their own cultures and their foods and their likes and their dislikes, and they don't like this one and they don't like that. And now that I live in Asia, specifically Southeast Asia, It's a fascinating area, and all the countries are so different, which is why it's so good to visit here and explore. Mark Lin says, in Vietnam, first time, I had an old lady help me across the road. That's cool, that's great. And yeah, you sort of need to hang around the locals to know exactly how you're meant to negotiate their roads. I remember that case, Tim, and agree with you 100%. Very sad outcome, says Paul Weston. I can see Jay as an air traffic controller, kind of like Billy Bob Thornton. That's a random comment, thank you very much. I'm not going to be reading any more comments about capital punishment, by the way. Okay, so let's go through 2 or 3 more comments, and then I'm going to say goodbye, and you're going to say goodbye, and we're all going to have a fantastic Saturday. Or indeed, it might be Friday night where you are, and I hope you're enjoying your Friday night. By the way, the very, very top of the conversation here, I've lost it. I think it was Scott D who said he went to see Top Gun Maverick last night and enjoyed it thoroughly. Have you seen Top Gun Maverick? I went to see it last week. I think I told you, and I was getting a bit airsick or travel sick by the end of it. I mean, the flying scenes, I mean, the film is extraordinary, and it was very entertaining. Silly, but very entertaining. So hope you got to see it. And there's another, I think a Jurassic Park opens up in Thailand today, so I think I'll be seeing that by myself in a nice little quiet Bangkok cinema sometime next week. So interested to see what you thought about that particular film. Thank you very much, Scott D, though, for sharing that with us. 212 Roger says, good riddance. A good riddance to me? Okay, thank you very much. Mackie says, it's always Friday afternoon in Thailand. There's something that, there's something in that. Take care, keep going. I love the free speech angle Tim has. Your opinion is respected, Tim. A lot of people don't, but I'm sort of paid in some degree for my opinions. Let me just finish by saying, and this is a bit of a sign off, one of the hardest parts of this job is fronting up to this camera on a daily basis. Usually we've got Jay hosting the program, and I'm there as sort of the the paid shit stirrer, I suppose you'd call me. But the problem is that you're going to get battered. As soon as you express an opinion, half the people watching are not going to agree with your opinion and then start sending the hate. And then the next day you share a different opinion, and those people don't like the opinion. So you actually get this sort of wedge of people that don't like you, and the people that do like you sort of turns into an ever smaller funnel. So it was a strategy that we took to go from just reporting the news to sharing opinions, and we've had different people with different opinions. People like Forrest Lee, who's been on the program, has got quite a different political spin than mine, and I've enjoyed having people coming in and sharing the different opinions. But the fact is that people, when they don't like your opinion, they tend to hate you, and they tend to vilify you, and they troll you, and that can really get wearing. And this is not something that I ever planned to do or wanted to do. It was a strategy from one of the members of the board that we go down this track, and I've sort of had to wear the brunt of a lot of the hate. And it's something that I don't carry particularly well and that I haven't particularly enjoyed. But once you've said things, you can't unsay them. And once they're out on the internet, they're said. So it's been, but there again, that's it's just part of the responsibility you take. As soon as you open your mouth and as soon as you start waxing lyrical with different opinions, there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with you. And I understand that's part of what we do here. We're here to garner opinions. Opinions we love, generally. The way they're expressed can sometimes be a bit harsh, but what we never tolerated was people coming up with false facts. And at some stage, as this is our channel, we've got to be the gatekeeper and decide if we're going to let people troll us with false facts and fake news. And that's always been quite difficult as well. Again, I'm sort of moving into another area of freedom of speech, and that's quite difficult as well. Welcome to social media. Yep, and this is a part of the news business these days that needs to be understood. When Mark Zuckerberg put Facebook together, what was it, 2008? He just wanted some sort of online way of picking up girls. He never imagined that his platform would be weaponised to alter the outcome of elections, and for people to misuse and sort of preach fake news and false information. But this is what's happened, and how do we cope with it? Do we say freedom of speech and all views are okay? Well, you can't say that, because if it's wrong, it shouldn't be published. Who decides if it's right or wrong? All this needs to be worked out. But it's up to much smarter people than me to work this out in the future. 1st of July, saying no masks and no Thai pass. Have you heard about it? Well, nothing's been decided, John. As a final comment, John Pace, the 1st of July, I think we might have a strong chance of seeing some of these things being removed and some changes to the opening hours. Let's hope it happens. We will keep abreast of it right this week. And certainly when it's announced, I can promise that the Thaiger will have that information to you before anybody else. And if there's some big announcements, I'll jump online and share that information with you personally as soon as we know. But yep, the rumours are out there. There's going to be changes to face masks, to the Thailand pass, and to the closing hours in Thailand's nightlife. Let's hope it all happens. And with that, very quickly, Greg Anderson, did I see it on IMAX? No. I think IMAX would be too much for me. With a film like Top Gun Maverick, I saw it in a normal cinema. That's big enough screen for me. Okay, so thank you all very much for being with us over the last 75 minutes. This is a great time for me each week. I enjoy sitting down with you and having a cup of coffee. Where's my cup of coffee? Oh dear, I think it's cold. Anyway, I'll get another one. Thank you very much to Dean and DeLuca for putting up with me for the past hour. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts and your comments, your goodwill, and a few thumbs downs as well. That's all part of the game. Have a great Saturday, no matter what you're doing. Hopefully Jay's going to be with you tomorrow. Otherwise, it'll be you and me again having a talk about the news. But from everybody at the Thaiger, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.